Why did Mr. Paulo Jordan fake his qualifications? Is this the beginning of the end to Mr. Paulo Jordan's intellectual input and political career? What does Paulo Jordan's resignation mean for the ANC? And how rife is the problem of false qualifications in South Africa? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mpho Tsedu. He remains our comrade, our teacher and our mentor, regardless of his human defects. Close quote. Such was the ANC Youth League's reaction to the resignation from Parliament and the ANC of Mr. Paulo Jordan, a renowned intellectual and an ANC struggle stalwart. This issue has made news headlines since a Sunday newspaper cast serious doubt over Mr. Jordan's alleged dubious academic credentials. This happened last week. But will Dr. Paulo Jordan ever recover from this scandal? My guests today are Professor Lesiba Tefo from the University of South Africa, Alexis Peche is manager at Managed Integrity Evaluation, and we expect to be joined on the line later by ANC National Spokesperson Zizi Godwa. Welcome to the show. Prof, can I call you Prof?
I have no doubt about my academic credentials.
Okay. Prof, here is Paulo Jordan, a renowned ANC stalwart, an intellectual giant. It emerges that indeed he faked his qualifications. What was your reaction when you heard about this?
I had no doubt when it came out into the media that there could be substance to it. But I remained hesitant that if it were to be proven true, then I would be the most disappointed man. And indeed, it's with a heavy heart that I participate in this, for I'm one of those who look up to him. For me, an intellectual par excellence. And indeed, he didn't have to lie about the qualifications, for his intellect is one worthy of our emulation. And some of us as students, and even as academics today, we still look up to him. And he has made immense contribution in intellectual fora, in publications, in scholarship, let alone in contributing to where we are politically speaking.
Perhaps then it means that these titles do not necessarily mean somebody is intelligent or capacitated beyond others, because if Paulo Jordan can, survive his doctorate for this long, and like you're saying, that his contribution in the world of intellectualism and I guess intellectual development and discourse is undoubted, and he was convincing.
Look, let's just get it straight here. We have got great men and women, right? The like of Paul Sartre, Martin Heidegger, Aristotle, and so on, who had no PhDs. But thousands and millions of PhDs were written on them. And I would argue that if Paulo had written scholarly works, many people would today claim to be professors and PhD based on his works, based solely on his intellectual prowess. For that much, I have no doubt. He has, unfortunately, because of human frailty and the circumstances and the conditions sometimes we find ourselves in, we tend to inflate our achievements. And I think that's where he fall flat.
Why is that the case? Why would somebody want to be called Dr. So-and-so, Professor so-and-so, if you are not?
Well, this is the space in which we find ourselves. We get sometimes socialized in environment that demand and put a high premium on academic qualifications rather than the beauty of the brain. And that's why I make the distinction. The blood cloth for me is less important than the intellectual capital residing in the brain.
The black cloth you're talking about?
Academic regalia.
Oh, the gown,
and
yes.
the titles are of no consequence to me. Hence I said that I know of great men and women who have not achieved academically, but others achieved based on what they wrote and spoke about. Remember, academia, when it started, there was nothing written. So it was men and women who engaged in discourses, and others codified what was said then. And scholarship began to take firm shape, but credit went to those who originated the ideas. And I'm saying Paulo could have achieved a lot by just writing. Even one article would have sufficed to give him a PhD, or even to earn him a professorship, as we have many women and men who have titles bestowed legitimately upon them based on one piece of scientific work.
Okay. Ms. Pecha, your organization, MIE, Managed Integrity Evaluation.
Yes.
What do you do?
MIE is the most trusted background screening company in Southern Africa. We focus particularly on pre-employment verification, ensuring that people don't tell lies on their CVs, or we help organizations sift through the lies in the CVs. So we would look at qualification verification, criminal record checks. We would look at employment references, because people are known to embellish certain sections of their CVs. It could be that somebody alters their matric results or says that they have a PhD that, and they don't. And in applying for the post, you would then put forward this information, and to mitigate risk for the employer, we then are pointed to check.
So, well, let me ask you the question that I asked Prof. here, as to what is the reason? Why do people want to inflate their achievements or misrepresent themselves?
I will say, and I'll tie it back to unemployment. Okay, I feel that, unemployment has created a point where people are willing to make deals with the devil, if we put it in that way. The job market is scarce. The competition is very high. People are desperate. So the desperation to get a job becomes now the driving force in falsifying information about you.
But in this case, you can't talk about...
well, in this case, we can't talk about it, but in the same breath, prestige and the wanting to be recognized.
Given the front row seat.
Front row seat, yes. Is as it were. If it's Paulo Jordan, a beautiful mind, an intellectual, yes. But just that title alone and how it's actually, in some levels, negated all he's done simply because he declared himself to be something that he wasn't, a PhD. He could have still contributed without having that prestige.
How does it happen that one, can I just start today and say I'm Dr. Mpo, and, everybody refers to me as such?
I think at a higher position, people are less likely, feel that it's sometimes less likely that people will check. It's more sadder for the lower entry level guys that are actually getting in and saying, I have a matric and somebody will check it. But the moment somebody walks in with a PhD, it's almost as if people shun or are afraid to actually check within that context. And you find that most PhDs or CEOs or anything to that effect, anybody walks into an organization and says, I was a CEO of a company in China. It is taken at times at face value, and you find that guy just walked in from the streets, and he's just got a brilliant mind that can, fraud in that way.
Is it because, Prof, that we indeed are so preoccupied with the front seat and we end up compromising ourselves to this extent?
Look, yes. People put a high premium on academic qualifications, and rightly so, by the way, rightly so. We have to earn them. That's what is important for me. But when we elevate and essentialize the achievement rather than what can be done based on that, then it becomes a different debate for me. And then hence I want to unpack this and say, as far as a man is concerned, he is a special intellect. What he's done, it's forgivable, I want to believe. Remember, he's not the first.
Yeah.
He's treading the route trodden by many, especially some of them worked in this building, and some of them are still working in this building, okay, as said. But what we are saying is...
We're going to talk about that. I'll give you more time to just explain that only after the break. For now, let's take a quick break. We'll return shortly.
Across the globe, the continent and the entire country, every second there's always a breaking story. SABC News is your reliable eye, ear and information system in bringing you events as they happen. Our cutting-edge and hard-hitting journalism leaves no stone unturned, giving you the whole picture every time. Join us every day on SABC One and know what is happening around you. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
This question time you're watching, and welcome back. My guest today is Professor Lisibate from the University of South Africa. Alexis Peche, she's the manager at Managed Integrity Evaluation. Now, Prof, let me allow you to finish off your point that Paulo Jordan is not the first.
Yes, indeed, he's not the first.
Mm-hmm.
And as said, what is the basis for this? Living a life for so long. As my sister said, it can open doors for you. It can lead to access to certain things that you would not have accessed had you not claimed to have what you do not have. But understandably, it's about Paulo Jordan, but it would be also unfair not to acknowledge that this is something fairly prevalent in our society. And I want to submit that I shared platform with people at one stage who are alleged to have had PhDs and other qualifications that they didn't have. One of the famous ones is a man who jobbed the University of the Witwatersrand and the University of the North, going by the title of Professor Chotsa.
Professor Chotsa Mampur.
Yes, a young fellow from Skukuniland.
Yes.
But who could at least sway everybody in the halls of the University of the North and the University of the Witwatersrand. He had the gift of the gap. He prepared well. He made an impression, and we were almost all taken up by what you were saying, and I was part of that process. So, and there are many other people that I also have respect for, who also embellished their CVs. They were taken to task. Some were humble enough to confess and apologize. Some were not, and some went into oblivion. Like the question is, can he survive this? I hope he will survive, given the power of it. And in fact, I'm sitting in a building where, I remember there was a Dr. Sitole, there was a Dr. Nyati here, who also walked through this building, who made allegations to the effect that they had what they didn't have. So, yes, we don't condone it, but it is prevalent, and I'm happy we've got institutions like Peche is heading that should help at least in vetting people before they assume office and before they bring pain to themselves and to their families.
To themselves. Mapeche, Camille Pramit wrote that to those outside academia, this may seem negligible.
Yeah.
After all, he wasn't thieving millions of rands or existing on the take. He just gave himself an extra degree. But for the very few people who ever come to hold such a degree, one that should not only contribute entirely new knowledge to the discipline in which it is written, and which represents the greatest personal and professional test of their lives, we cannot let this slide. It would demean their achievement and the prestige we place upon the attainment of such a high honor. Is this really the case? Would you feel bad that somebody says, you know, I've got a BA degree when you actually have the real one?
Of course you would feel bad. You're keeping people with the right qualifications out of a job. You're getting the right guy doesn't get the job simply because the wrong guy walked in with what looks fake on face value. And I want to go back to that quote where you say, you know, it's not really that bad, particularly for the outside person, but more so for the academia part of it. It is bad for the reputation of this country, number one. It is bad for the youth of this country, because the example that is being set, and my colleague here has also said that it is not just Paulo Jordan who's had these issues. There's been many prevalent stories across the board where we're saying to young people, it's okay. to lie. It's okay to embellish. You want to get ahead, go and tweak your results. Go and do those things. Somehow the accountability bit shouldn't be sitting necessarily with academia. It should be sitting with society as a whole. The good guy comes out last because the guy with the fake qualification is pushed forward.
Yeah, but look, you give gowns to little kids at the creche.
Yes.
You know, you have graduated. Here's your little gown and little certificate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they grow up feeling that if you do not have that, you are basically nothing. So why shouldn't society therefore accept that? Look, you can be something without, that gown.
I don't think society doesn't accept it. I think the unacceptable bit is lying about having the gown. There are many people who've walked into institutions and declared to only have had their matric. It's about declaring. It's about being truthful. If the job spec says matric, don't go there with a diploma additional and make it up for yourself. The job spec says matric.
Okay.
But can I please? This question of the gowns and the qualification is very important for me. Because as a society, we must soon graduate from putting an emphasis on the black cloth or the red cloth. I'm a graduate from a university where you get only a gown when you obtain your PhD. For all the junior degrees and a master's degree, there is no gown at all. For a master's degree, for a junior degree, you get in a hall like they do at high school or at primary school. They call you, 50 of you, and declare you are a master's from today. Bye-bye. And in this country, the sooner we move away from that, because the reason why people feel like cheating, right, is because when we go out there, even at funerals, we put on these dresses, and we make those who do not have feel like they are less people, and therefore become desirous and seek ways and means to have those, and even make false claims like we are talking about today. The sooner we put less emphasis on the gowns and put premium on academic achievement and academic excellence based on sweat and sacrifice. Because I guess Paulo Jordan has the wherewithal. All he needed was discipline. Sit down for a few months. He would have come out with one of the nicest pieces out of which many PhDs would have been written.
You can't be sitting down during the time of the revolution, Prof.
There are many who achieved during that period. His peers, with whom he was in the trenches, the likes of Thabo Mbeki and many others I would mention, who out there made it and came out with PhDs for that matter.
Now, should we applaud him for resigning from these positions, or should we really treat him like somebody who resigned because he knew that he had done wrong?
He had done wrong. I accept that. But if there is anything I will respect him for, and is consistent with what I've known him to be, his human frailty notwithstanding, is that he said, "Mea culpa, I'm wrong, I'm stepping down." And when I heard that, I thought about the former SARS chief, Obama Hashuli, who said, I have failed my people, I stepped down. How many people who are holding offices, who are not worthy, based on similar failures that Opa faced and Paulo faced? Perhaps there is a lesson, and I'm glad he's going down, leaving the public space perhaps, but on a high note in terms of moral, right? Moral rectitude. I failed you, but I can still stand up, pick up my pieces, and still say the right thing to do is this one.
Okay. We're going to wrap up the show only after the break. This is Question Time. Please don't go away.
Zoom into Africa. This is Sierra Leone.
The president is Mr. Ernest Bai Koroma. Sierra Leone got independent from the United Kingdom on 27 April in 1961. The population is more than 6 million people. One of the major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is Leone.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Our guest today is Professor Lisiba Tefu from the University of South Africa and Mayor Alexis Beche, a manager at Managed Integrity Evaluation. Now, Mepich, when we opened the show here, I did mention that the ANC Youth League was quoted as saying, "He remains our comrade, our teacher and our mentor, regardless of his human defects. As the Youth League, we have always taken his contribution to any and all discussions seriously, and we shall continue to do so. For when we engage as comrades, we do so not with the qualifications of the speaker or presenter, but with the content presented or advanced." Is it a good thing? Are they setting a bad example?
I don't think they're setting a bad example. I think it would be quite irrational to say that his contribution is worthless simply because he went and added doctor to his surname. Let us not take away from the man. I always say that he's 72 years old. He's played his part. You know, it's not right that one lies about their qualification. One moves up front to the seat. But there's much more going on in our country that is deeper, more entrenched, according to fraud and corruption, than adding doctor to your name. However, I still say it's not right, but let's not take away from the man. They can engage. He's made great contributions. Let's not take away that from him.
Okay. And by the way, we had confirmed with Zizi Godo that he was going to be part of this discussion via telephone, but it would appear that he's held up with, or rather in other engagements of the ANC. Prof, the ANC Youth League said it would engage its structures in tertiary institutions to start a process of ensuring that South African University conferred honorary doctorates, not one, on Jordan for his immense contribution in the promotion of literary work and the development of democracy. How do you feel about that?
It's a bit too late. It ought to have been done yesterday, not now. Neither would he accept that, okay? And just the thought in and by itself, post factum, trying to repair the damage done is not good. And we also don't want to say, without a PhD, he's less of a human being. I still get immense regard, I'm sure possibly until the last day of his life, given what I consider him to be worth, intellectually speaking. So let's not, those who want to legitimize him by giving him a PhD, in fact, it can even worsen the situation. In fact, they are even adulterating his intellectual prowess. He doesn't need a PhD. He is a PhD in and by himself. Yes.
The Secretary General of the ANC then is quoted as saying, "A man of Comrade Paulo Jordan's intellect does not need to perpetuate deceit. He must be given time to deal with his guilt." I thought that was a bit harsh.
No, I think it was aptly put. Yes. He failed the ANC. He failed the youth of this country. He failed intellectual and academia. He failed us in many ways. We accept that, right? And surely, deep down, he's hurting wherever he is. His family is hurting. His friends are hurting. And let's give them space. We concede he erred, and let's give them space. Like in bereavement, I'm sure he's going through a lot of pain.
Okay. Now, your organization, would you consider what one says in his official CV, although it does not necessarily require those qualifications? For instance, for one to become a member of parliament, you need no qualifications, you know?
Yes.
Would it bother an organization like yours?
It wouldn't bother. Remember, let's play with Parliament as an example. Parliament would engage us to verify something. So if it was a policy within government or Parliament that a parliamentarian has to have a degree, we would verify that it's in fact correct. So it's based on a company's HR policies.
Okay.
So if it's not mandatory to that post, then they wouldn't engage with us to verify it.
But do you take up issues, for instance, issues of this nature that are really in the public, you know, to say, as an organization,
we'd like to go and verify it? Not at all. Everything that we do has to do with consent.
Okay.
So I cannot conduct a background check on anybody without that particular individual giving us consent. Particularly if you look at recent stories where people have been talking about false information of a degree from UNISA, for instance. UNISA as an institution won't let you verify.
And it's a target. Apparently everybody just says they've got a degree from UNISA.
And
Prof, I'm sure you wouldn't be very happy because they always target our degree, political sides.
Certainly, but with UNISA it's easy because it's an open institution. So unlike other residential universities would say, Mpo, you and I at one point ought to have been together at the time you're alleged to. But when it comes to this, where you read in your own space, in your own corner, it's always very easy. That you can do it under the sun, under the water, wherever. It's just fine.
to add something.
Okay, go ahead.
Going back to that on universities. So universities have gone and outsourced companies such as ourselves to verify on their behalf. You'll find that there's qualification registers. In our case, it'll be the National Qualifications Register, where 3.5 million graduate records are stored. So instead of going directly to the university, you would go to a background screening company and say, give me this information. Right. This has made fraud on those particular institution qualifications from there actually decrease. We've seen a serious dip where only 6% last year were fraudulent.
Okay, Prof, a quick one. He resigns from Parliament, he resigns from the NEC of the ANC, and he resigns as an ordinary member of the ANC. Was it necessary?
Well, I think he has made a very powerful moral statement by just stepping down from everything. To some, including myself, it is regrettable because I think there's still a contribution he can make. But let's say a lot can be learned from that and close that chapter at that point and hold him high as he was yesteryear. And then say many a men and women, we hope, would do same when they reach that point whereby they should say. But I think the last point I really would like to make, especially in relation to the Youth League's call, is that perhaps they should rather campaign for the verification of qualifications from the junior lecturer to a vice-chancellor of all the universities in the country.
Could it be possible that they are being taught by fakes?
We have had a number of instances where what we are talking about was proven to be true. So that tomorrow you and I, we don't come back and sit here and find ourselves shamed in front of our children and the world. Perhaps we should, and her organization is best placed to do that job.
Let me thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Prof.
Galabo.
Professor Lisibatef. That was question time for today. A big thank you. My guest, and to you for watching the show. We welcome your feedback via email. Question time at sabc.co.za or our Twitter handle @questiontime24. From me and the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.